The times it was good, it was really good. The times even when it was bad, I reminded myself this is what leaders go through. This is what you're supposed to. It isn't all fun and ice cream socials. But I would do it again in a heartbeat, but it really is time to leave.
Well, you are hearing our past Seattle City Council President, Deborah Juarez, who spoke to me at the end of her 2 terms in office last December. She said it was time to leave. But what perspective can she give to a newer and experienced council working on a very challenging budget this fall? Also, plenty of work for the council this week on surveillance, hiring bonuses for officers. We're going to get a check of what's on the docket and so much more this week on Seattle News, Views, and Brews, your coffee break political podcast. I'm Brian Callanan. I'm a host on Seattle Channel, and the views expressed here are mine. My co-host, David Croman, is on leave, so somehow I got stuck with former Council President Deborah Juarez filling in. I don't know what's happening here. Deborah, how are you? Thank you for doing this.
I'm doing really good. It's good to see you outside of the studio and listening to your little podcast, Bros and Brews. Yeah, Bros and Brews. Where's the baseball cap?
I don't know. I'm not wearing the cap today because I knew you'd give me a bad time about it. We'll see. We'll see where we go here. Well, thank you. Thank you for being here, Deborah. Thanks also to City Grind Espresso, the background noise sponsor for the audio podcast on the first floor of City Hall. A continued thanks to my show patrons, Robin, Andy, Blake, Stephen, Cheryl. Very much appreciate you writing to the city with regard to the fact that my job at Seattle Channel just might be cut under the mayor's proposed budget. The council's working on that now. I'll keep you posted. If you are listening and you want to be a patron, we answer your questions on the show. There's some other perks too. Support the show on Patreon, Seattle News, Views, and Brews. Also, a big thank you to Converge Media. The video version of this podcast airs on Converge Wednesday nights at 7. All right, let's get going here. Time for Right Here, Right Now. All right, Deborah, let's get to it. What have you been up to? What's going on?
You wish you were still on council. And whatever it is that y'all do. But I just finished up yesterday on our podcast, Unfiltered, and Omari and Enrique reminded me, because I said I was going to be on your show, that whatever I do here will show up on Converge. So I better be careful and not make sure I stay consistent.
Yeah. Well, so you're doing podcasting, but you're also... I remember you saying when we had our exit interview, if you want to call it that, back in December, that you were still going to be involved in different ways in civic life, and I wanted to know what you were doing, what's happening there.
Well, I would never disengage from civic life. And as you know, local politics, regional and national, this is the crazy season. Everyone knows October just gets insane. Right. But one of the things you and I talked about briefly is like, what are you doing now? And it's all the things that I haven't done. I have never gotten unemployment. I've never not worked except for, since I was 14, except for when I had my 2 babies, which are now 30 and 33. And when I took the bar exam. So I am enjoying my gap year from Seattle City Council. And
you call it a gap year. You're
one of my friends called it that, and I loved it. And so I've been using that. Mm-hmm. I have been walking, reading, listening to podcasts. I've read 6 books. Wow. I'm catching up with friends. I've been active with Native Action Network and the tribes. In the last 7 months, I've read 4 books. I just finished Blood Meridian by Cormac McCarthy, who wrote No Country for Old Men.
Yeah, right.
Wolfish. And I got COVID, which was bad. But one thing that I've had a chance to finally really enjoy is the Storm. As you know, I go to all their games.
Great basketball team.
For a decade. Yeah, great basketball team. Yep. Great playoffs. Did not make it to the end, but that's okay. One thing that's been exciting for me is finally getting a chance to just do a deeper dive on things that I have been interested in, but just haven't had time to nurture and get into, besides all the books and journalists or podcasts I've been listening to. Yeah. And that's looking at like renewable energies for tribes, solar, wind, the cold climate issue. But I've also been focusing on my grandbabies, Cyrus and Edie, who just turned 2.
Wow.
So that's been amazing.
Can I jump in? When you say gap year, that says to me that, okay, I'm taking a gap, but I'm going to be jumping back into a political job next year. Is that what you're saying? What's going on?
That's exactly. Okay, I'm so glad you said that. I didn't think you would catch it, but you did.
Every now and then. When I
say gap, what I'm saying is that, and I think last time I was on your show, and I've said this to everybody, and I've been saying it because I learned it from Uncle Billy Frank. You lead to leave. Mm-hmm. I didn't want to be in public office for nothing wrong if people want to. I'm not casting aspersions. But for me, 10 months of campaigning for Seattle City Council, 8 years on the council is almost 9 years of my life. And I needed to it was time to go. But also, it was time for other people to step up because there's really good people that want to run and you need fresh eyes and fresh vision and more energy. So you lead to leave. And what I've always added is that you leave a legacy. And whether that's brick and mortar or programs or what you've done for the city or the district, something you can point at, something you're proud of that you did with other people, that you actually got things done. And I don't think if I didn't feel that fuel, I would have been ready to leave, but I was ready. I feel like I've done enough. I think I did good things.
Yeah.
I think I changed some of the landscape of the city and my district. Mm-hmm. But yeah, I plan on doing something. I'm just not sure yet, because right now I'm just fielding different options and opportunities and writing opportunities and teaching opportunities. So it's been nice to jump back into Indian country on a more personal level,
right,
with tribes, and just being with Indian people and doing other things besides, the politics of everything. That's been wonderful. Watching the Native American Caucus organize and working with them real closely, and Auntie Julie, on some of these elections and races and some of these initiatives. So no, I don't ever check out. And I'm a big reader. I'm a big journaler. I don't know. Who knows? I can't go back to my former job, which was an international supermodel. So right. I kind of, they're not picking up my contracts. So a little bit, I'll get a little bit long in the tooth. So they don't want me anymore.
Yeah, Revlon hasn't sponsored this podcast either. I feel you. That's tough. That's tough. Can you give me some perspective, though, Deborah? When I think about what the council is going through right now, just sort of writ large, we're talking about a really complicated budget process. You went through your first one in 2015, and now we have 6 people who have never been through that process before doing it for the Seattle City Council. Do you have an inkling of what's going on there? Because I just think that's a big challenge for the city right now, just in terms of getting this work done with a lot of new folks on board. How would you describe it?
Let me start off with this. I got to do 2 huge budget cycles when I worked for Governor Lowry and Governor Locke.
Okay.
And so I got used to like the horse trading, negotiation, consensus, how much money is there, how much fat is there, what's really there. And so once you kind of learn, and then of course, then at City Hall, the problem there was that, at least in Olympia, you could reach across the aisle, you could talk to people, you could pick up the phone, you can go in someone's office and say, hey, I see you're doing this. What do you think about that? So for this city council, what I would add is that, these are all adults that ran for office. They all come from professions. They're all bright people. They ran. It isn't that complicated in the sense of, what a budget is. What the mayor's going to send down. We had a process, and I hope Brindell listens, but if it weren't for Brindell cracking the whip and keeping us organized about
one of your staff members,
dividing it up and what we always started with, and I've had a couple really intense phone calls with a few council members. The first overarching issue as a council member, whether you're district or citywide, is what are our city values? What are we looking to fix? Then is what is our district issues that we need to honor, that we need to fix? Is it potholes? Is it crosswalks? Is it what is it? Sure. And then that third bucket really is who our constituents base in which we represent. For me, it was a lot of indigenous-led nonprofit organizations, the food banks up here. So you kind of break it into those 3 things, and then you look at, and then my secret was, and it's not a secret, is I've always had, really good, cordial, sometimes difficult, but always cordial and professional and kind relationships with the mayor. Yeah. So I always pushed hard before the second week in August to make sure that I had met with the mayor, their staff, their budgeting folks. So my stuff, and when I say my stuff, I don't mean just D5, but was in the mayor's budget. So by the time it got to the second floor, a lot of our issues were baked in. And those are mainly brick and mortar issues about sidewalks and those kind of things.
Sure. Right. And so you've been talking with some of the current council members. They've been asking for your help. What's been your impression? I think they're all trying to make it through here. And it is, as I mentioned, a pretty challenging year with a $250 million deficit they're rolling with.
Yeah, council members call me about different issues, not just the budget. And I appreciate that, because let me just do a quick side story. Because I believe, as we do in Indian country, that older people do have wisdom, lived experience, and know a few things.
And I also believe that you have side stories. But keep going.
I'll just say this, and maybe people think this isn't popular, but when I got elected, and my first budget, I really appreciated Tim Burgess, Sally Bagshaw, now Bruce Mayor Harrell, who I could go in their office and say, I don't understand what this is. How does this work? What is the green sheet? What am I doing with central staff? They mentored me like, oh no, you got to do this. This is what you should do. Have you talked to so-and-so over here? Because I wasn't familiar with all the city departments. Or the directors, or who are the people on the ground getting stuff done. And so I just started like I did with the state, who do I talk to? What are our priorities? What are the mayor's priorities? But the other piece of that is those council members that I've talked to on different issues, and just recently a few on the budget, the conversations have been really detailed, and they're not like 101. They're not like, oh, what am I doing? It's more like, these are some of the priorities of the mayor. This is some of the priorities of what my colleagues are looking at. When you were looking at this, if you took money here, where would you look to look money over here?
Yeah, yeah.
What kind of funds didn't get spent? What are the provisos? Explain, like that kind of stuff doesn't, once you get the job, I don't, maybe when people are listening, it's not as easy as it looks. It's hard. And but one thing I tell everybody, and I just did this for a Native Action Network training session and with a bunch of other electeds, and I say this all the time, as long as you're honest with people and you're direct and you're straightforward and you say, I can do this or I can't do that, they may not be happy about that, but as long as they respect you and they know that you've not lied to them and told them something that's not true just because they happen to be in front of you, you can't do that. You have to have people's trust because your word is your bond on the second floor. And I can honestly say in the 8 years I was there, I never, ever flipped. I never said I was going to do something I couldn't do or say things just to a particular group because, I needed to say it. Yes, I changed my opinion on some things, but I also called those people up and said, hey, I know we talked about this 6 months ago. Here's the landscape now. The money's not there. This is what I'm looking at. I don't think I got the votes, but let's look at it in the supplemental. Give me something, slim down. Or what placeholder can I put in there, proviso, to get you where you need to be? But I always try to align my views, too, with what the mayor's objectives are, because they're the city objectives as well. I don't really go, it's the executive, it's the legislative. It's three stools of government, and I need to work with the executive and the judicial.
Yeah. Just a final thought on this budget that's come out here. It's I know there's this deficit they're rolling with, and you've talked to them about that. We're talking about how the mayor's trying to fix it, and there's some of these payroll tax dollars going in here. Do you see it on a good path ahead? Just talking about it in general terms. Where are you seeing this budget process for the city going?
Well, I don't want to say on a good path because no one ever gets what they want, but isn't it 285 million?
Yeah, it's getting, there's some estimates that have it that high.
The overall budget is 1.9 billion.
Right.
And it steadily goes up as everything else does. But some of the basics, I don't see it going sideways like, oh my God, this is the first time in Seattle City Council, the history, people don't know what they're doing. It's just crazy town. But again, I could be wrong. No problem being wrong. But I think you have some really thoughtful people on their first budget cycle, not just learning, but really listening and really trying to do the right thing. And I know a lot of times when people come to City Hall, they scream at you. I always kind of like this one saying, and part of it is true. When people say this budget is, your morality document.
Your moral compass, your moral statement.
Your moral compass. And it's some of that, but it's also, we live in the real world with real money that people, and we had to make sure we negotiated with the unions for the city employees. And there are things, some bills have to get paid. But you're right, you do need that voice in there for those people that never get heard to make sure that they're there. And, there's some nonprofits too that have been around. They're like legacy nonprofits that for a while there, they just got in line first and got money first. And I always said, we need to have some fresh faces and organizations and new approaches. And I don't think there's anything wrong with that.
And I think that's going to be a big conversation in the months and years ahead when you talk about different human service providers too. Well, I wanted to check on something else, what's going on with the docket with the Seattle City Council this week. There's plenty when it comes to police, public safety, surveillance, even some statewide ballot issues. I'm going to break it down coming up on Now Hear This. Well, the council will be back in full budget mode next week on the 16th, but this week they're very busy too, working on a resolution opposing I-2117, the statewide initiative that would gut the carbon market created by the Climate Commitment Act. Councilmember Morales sponsoring that. Council also finalizing a vote on allowing for more closed-circuit television and the use of a real-time crime center, what the city is calling a technology-assisted crime prevention pilot project. And finally, that idea of providing bonuses from $30,000 to $50,000 to officers who apply to the Seattle PD from other departments outside the area. That program, it will now be permanent. And Chief Surar says helping recruiting can't come fast enough.
Although we're encouraged by the recent increase in police job applications and our improved onboarding processes, it's still going to take us years to fill all of the officer vacancies and restore our staffing to safe levels.
Well, Deborah, a few things have changed since you left office and a few have not. For one, we have this growing care department. The Community Assisted Response and Engagement provides 911 alternative responses, social workers going out responding to some calls. But then on the other hand, Seattle continues to struggle, like a lot of places, including tribes too, in hiring law enforcement officers. That's why the council is looking at all these different incentives. So I wanted to look at the big picture with you here. Are we going to see more civilian-run 911 alternatives as the number of officers just keeps on lagging here? Do you see an end in sight when it comes to this whole crisis of hiring police officers?
Yeah, I do. But let's go back. And I think you're talking about Chief Amy Smith, who is running the CARES.
Just changed to Barden. Yeah, she got married a little while ago. Mm-hmm.
Oh, okay. But she was amazing. And that whole idea, we have good council members that put that together. And we always wanted to see alternative for safety checks. And, as a standard saying is, not every emergency situation needs to be met with a badge and a gun, but some are. And we have to recognize that as a city as big as we are. I think we're up to 850,000 people. And with big city, as they say, big problems. As far as we're seeing across, and again, I haven't been as engaged as you, and I think you and I had a back and forth about that. Sure. I don't work there no more. I don't read the clips. I don't read a lot of this stuff. I was trying to look
at big picture if you could.
Yeah, it's like, come on now. But what I have seen in my age growing up, two things. Police departments recognize the change. Leadership is recognized. The harm of not changing, as we all know, even before we got to the consent decree. Mm-hmm. Police cannot be who they were 20, 30, 50 years ago. They have to be 21st century, respect, protect, those kind of warriors. Warriors aren't people that go out and hurt people. Warriors protect people.
Guardians, yeah, I've heard Sue use the word guardians a lot.
Like they're the protectors of the fire. Mm-hmm. They're the protectors. They're the ones that you look to, that you're going to protect me when I call and something's wrong. Mm-hmm. So that mentality is changing a lot. And it isn't that we don't need police, it's that we need a different and better kind of police force. And what does that mean? And so now that question is being answered, like we have these alternatives. And I almost don't even want to say alternatives, but I guess that's the word we do use for government, because a lot of these, if you're in smaller communities, like I'll just give an example, like on my reservation, a few others, local police are usually tribal members and they know so-and-so and they bring them home or they talk to them, or, there's just more of a human element about, because we all know each other. You can't always do that in a big city, but you can do that with precincts when people get to know those officers. Mm-hmm. And I just don't want to list, but I can think of about a dozen officers that I've known at least 20 years in the community that people know them.
Right.
And,
know them by name. Yeah.
Yeah, that's good. And certainly when we had some school resource officers too, a lot of the folks in high school knew the officer and, eyes and ears. And I'm not, again, because then what people start saying is, oh, you want to militarize Seattle Public Schools? Right. No, I don't. I just want somebody there with eyes and ears who's an adult that maybe young people can approach about, hey, I heard so-and-so has a gun. Yeah. You know what I'm saying? That's right. Because that's more important than the performative political stuff. So I think that is going to change.
I can bleep you if you need to, Deborah.
No, it's okay. I don't. I'm being really good about not doing that with you, because I no F-bombs. And so that's going to change. And, I commend any officer or chief of police that steps in and recognizes that. I think Chief Best did. Mm-hmm. I think Chief Diaz did. And I have not met, I think I've met her maybe one time, Chief Rar, Susan, is it Susan?
Sue Rar, yep. Mm-hmm.
Sue Rar, when she was over at King County.
Right.
I would like to see more of that. I mean, hell, I'd volunteer for that job, to be a person to go do welfare checks in communities and get people to know you, because I think that's important.
Yeah, it is important. And I wanted to take it next level, if I could, with you here and talk about something more specific to D5 when it comes to public safety. This idea of having these new SOAP zones, this out of areas of prostitution. So District 5, Kathy Moore is working on it, who took over for you in D5. She successfully passed this measure, stay out of areas of prostitution, focuses on Aurora Avenue North. Seattle's had prostitution, sex trafficking, other crimes for decades. I think it's fair to say on the record, these zones, sometimes they make some accomplishments and sometimes they don't. They're not always successful. I just wanted to get your take on how you think this approach is going to work in D5 on Aurora Ave North.
Well, let me give you a little historical perspective. When I was a public defender and a judge in the 80s and 90s, we did the soap and soda orders. Those were often in plea agreements, like stay out of area, you do no soap, soda. But the piece there was that, if you violated your agreement when you pled guilty or you were found guilty, that could be some enhancement if we catch you there later. Right. So I understand the tool. I'm guessing, though I have not looked at it, that what has been proposed by Councilmember Moore is much more sophisticated than what we saw in the 90s. And I should also add that soap and soda orders are not a silver bullet.
Yeah.
They're not going to, they're not going to end all crime on Aurora. It is going to be punitive in the sense that you're not supposed to be in those areas. But you have to do something. But I will say this about the impact. The prostitution and the sex trafficking we see now is nothing that we saw in the 90s and the early aughts. It's much more violent. We have younger people being sex trafficked. It's much more organized. And like I said, much more drugs, younger victims. And we have basically human trafficking. It got to a fever pitch right before I left. It was getting bad and bad and bad because we were not having any arrests.
Yeah.
And focusing not just on, of course, the people that buy patrons, Johns, but also people who are selling women and children, pimps. Those are the real villains, man. I know I still do this and my husband teases me, but when I go up Aurora, I always count how many prostitutes are out there, and some of them I just don't see anymore. And I work closely with Aurora Commons, Elizabeth Dahl, on those issues, kind of behind the scenes, making sure that we could get a doctor out there one time a week, and working with the UW. And every budget cycle, I made sure that their needs were met, where they could expand the building, expand services. But this whole sex trafficking thing with social media and what it's done in the imbalance of power between men and women if they choose to be in the sex business, we're not looking at choice here. We're looking at real human sex trafficking in which men are making hundreds of thousands of dollars, drug infused, on victims. And if we're going to pretend that, if you do soap and soda, it'll disenfranchise A, B, and C, I'm just going to call bullshit. No, these are people that are dying up there. And if you go from like 85th to basically 130th up in near my neighborhood, it's really bad when you see certain people, especially on fentanyl and the traffic that goes through there. So for Councilmember Moore and this Seattle City Council to recognize how violent it is. And one thing I've always watched, and it's interesting, women and children, when things go south in any society, it's women and children that get it the worst.
Right. Yeah.
Whether it's war, you name it, right? Poverty.
Push them off the Titanic. Yeah.
Yeah, everything. And so that's what we're seeing here. I don't think there's a real value on these women's lives that, I'm going to put aside the noise and chatter of people saying, oh, it's wrong, don't do it, it's blah, blah, blah. Do something. Okay. Is it going to be, like I said, is it going to fix, are all soap and soda orders going to fix and clean up Aurora and get rid of prostitution? No. Is it something? Yes. Hopefully it's better crafted, and it's punitive in nature to the people who are making money. And it's also focused on the health, safety, and welfare of the victims that are truly being trafficked, that don't want to be out there, don't belong out there.
Yeah. That's been the discussion that I've heard on council, Deborah, is that desire to make sure that there are some services that go along with this, and that, which is a dollars issue, of course. And I think that's going to be the challenge, is balancing. All right, there's going to be this police presence there, but in the same breath, there has to be that follow-up, it sounds like, to try to make sure that these girls, and we are talking about girls who, very young girls who are getting trafficked here, they need some additional help. And I think that's the focus I have right now, is to see, okay, I hear what police are going to be doing here. Where are the services coming that follow that?
Right. And so, like I said, I'm guessing the 2024 soap and soda approach will have half the focus will be on the health and well-being of the women that are out there. And that's not what we had back in the 90s and the 2000s, or 80s and 90s. You basically focused on arresting women. And I remember those days of representing a lot of sex workers. I can honestly say this, and certainly when I was a judge, nobody wants to show up on Aurora and make that their job. There are societal issues that brought them there. So if we can roll that back and provide services, and we say this term also, I remember in housing, we would say this, like, meet people where they're at.
Yeah, right.
And so having the budget cycle and working with people who are actually in the business of assisting these folks, and working with like the UW and other healthcare providers. You would be surprised when I go to the Aurora Commons dinner every year.
Yeah.
They've hired a lot of people that they've gotten out of the sex working trade, and also have as a keynote is one of the women, or usually a woman, obviously, that speaks to that. And when you hear these stories, it isn't just tugging on your heartstrings like, oh, this is just so bad. It's more like these are real people, real, like they say, data points with the story. These are real people, not just a dot like we arrested. So let's focus on that. And then, of course, focus on the people that are selling them.
There's a lot to focus on for the council here ahead with that. I thank you for that input. I did want to talk about what's coming up next. What has our former council president got her mind on heading into the election this fall? We're going to break that down on What's Next. Deborah, you mentioned it's crazy time here in October, and we're less than 30 days away from the election, so it's absolutely crazy time. I just wanted to know what issues that you want to keep in front of people and voters as they head to the elections this fall and maybe into the future, too.
Well, I don't want to tell people how to vote, but I have my own.
I don't either, but what's on your mind? What issues?
Well, there's the initiatives, like you mentioned, the 2117 working. I've been working closely with tribes and promoting Washington conservation voters to vote no on that. And I have obviously the climate issues. Like I told, I've been doing a deeper dive into renewable energy, wind, solar, production, jobs, green energy, what that means, talking to different tribal leaders and other organizations and how that would work. And also making people recognize that climate change is a real thing. And it's getting worrisome. On the coast, I think we've had 4 tribes that have had to move their villages inward. Right. And that's just been scary for the Quinaults, Queets, Makah, Shoalwater Bay. So these are real life situations where tribes have taken a real strong stance. And I've always been there. But there's only so much you could do at city council, right? I mean, I'm not trying to belittle anyone, but just some of the stuff that people would try to pass, it's just like, we can't outlaw natural gas in the city of Seattle tomorrow.
Right.
Yes, we will get there. But in the meantime, we have the whole restaurant industry. Who rely on natural gas to heat their homes. So
that's going to be a challenging initiative.
And we're not all AOC, we can't all pass, it's lovely. So I'm not putting that down. I'm just saying, from someone who's been in the trenches, civil rights, incremental, working for folks, you keep taking those steps, you keep moving forward. So that's one issue, the whole climate thing.
For sure.
I've been paying attention to, of course, what we're going to do in this national election. And everyone is just tired, and we're tired of that guy. The thing that drives me insane is when I watch some of the local national news. And the stuff that I read, when you hear people that, here's the undecided, I just don't know how you could be undecided.
Yeah.
Here's Vice President Kamala Harris, and here's this big steaming pile. I literally, it could be a potato over here, and I would vote for the potato. I would vote for a box of rocks. Hell, I'd vote for you even.
Come on. It can't be that bad. Right.
It's like, can people remember? So the national election is going to shake out so much issues for us. And of course, choice is the number one issue. Yes. I've given money to that, and of course, paying attention to that. I have 2 daughters who just have babies and want to grow their families, and other nieces and nephews. And as a woman, is everything else. So for me, it's kind of been climate. It's been choice. It's been the national election. It's been local politics as far as, what we're looking at for who's going to be our next governor, where our values align. And also paying really much more closer attention, because now I have the luxury of time and energy and more sleep, to what's going on in Eastern Washington too, is what they're looking at. Because some of our city of Seattle issues, which people used to say 5-8 years ago, that's a Seattle problem. We don't have that problem. Well, now you got it. You got fentanyl, you got sex trafficking, you got homelessness, you got
housing,
you got
density,
housing,
all
like
of it.
Spokane, Yakima. And it's been interesting going across the mountains to visit with my Yakima friends and some other folks over there. So that's been interesting, and learning more about what those needs are. And hopefully we have a governor that can meet all those needs. I mean, not meet them in the sense of solve them. I think that's what people think politicians are going to do. They're going to solve them. I think you try to, but you always try to get there, because we want what's best for our whole state, right? Not just the city of Seattle. It's funny when I go places, the minute they find out that I used to be on Seattle City Council, I have to explain, for 5 minutes, that it wasn't as crazy as it looked at on the outside. It may have just been reporting. But God bless us.
Yeah, right. This is what the gap year is all about too.
Exactly. You just say,
break.
Don't work there no more. Not on the second floor. Love everybody. Love everything.
Love it. I need to wrap up with you, Deborah, and I wanted to point out, I remember talking with you a couple years ago when the Northgate Iceplex went in. You were with a number of kids from REWA, the Refugee Women's Alliance. They were learning to skate for the first time. Some of them had never even seen an ice rink before. Great program from the Seattle Kraken and the city too. My question now is, Is it true you're going to be doing a skating recital during one of the intermissions there at Climate Pledge during a Kraken game? What can you tell us?
Okay, first about that, let me fact check you in real time. It's called the Kraken Community Iceplex.
Thank you.
And
It's up
Rewa is putting up their second pre-K here in D5. We already have one. We got another one coming, which is amazing. It's called The Nest with the elders that are there in North Haven.
Okay, yes. But don't avoid the question. When is your skating recital?
Yes,
what do we got?
I will be out there doing, from those of you who are really old, I will also be doing like the Dorothy Hamill thing, and I'll probably get the Dorothy Hamill haircut that I had in ninth grade.
Okay.
And and I'll probably dress in all my traditional Blackfeet regalia. So not only will I be ice skating like Dorothy Hamill circa 1978, I will be wearing my full Blackfeet regalia, and you will be right next to me helping me out, sir.
Oh, I like a little pair.
A white guy. I need a white guy. Come on now.
I'll be we'll do pair skating. I'll hold you up. A little dirty dancing time. I can't wait. That sounds like a great routine.
Oh my God. I'm thinking of that Will Ferrell movie with what's his name?
No, we're not going to do the Blades of Fury.
Blades of Glory.
That could get us in trouble. Well, I got to say, Deborah, it's great to visit with you. Thanks again for being here on the podcast.
Anytime, and thank you. I've always given you a hard time on your show, so this is really nice to just relax and just shoot the. I mean, just talk.
Yeah,
you can edit that out.
As you've been known to do. Well, that is Deborah Juarez, our former Seattle City Council president, joining me once again. Thanks to her. Thanks to everybody listening to Seattle News, Views, and Brews, where you can always find out what's brewing in local politics. Thanks again to the patrons who support the show. Really appreciate your help right now. If you're not a patron, join us. Find the podcast on Patreon, Seattle News, Views, and Brews. You can hear us on Apple, Spotify, wherever you listen. Thanks for watching on Converge Media 2. We'll see you next time.
Seattle News, Views, and Brews is an independent production of Callanan Media Services. Copyright 2024.